Hello? Hello? I'm still not in existence yet. Alright, that's better. I am in my formal wear. Why am I on the Enterprise? Oh, alright. It's one of these articles. Hello, everyone. I am Mecha Random 42. Still the one, still the only, still the original, still your favorite YouTube consumer advocate, Harpy. And why are we here?
What are they? Why are they? What do they mean?
Alright, random, but hey, that might be part of my name. We are here to talk about one of the most insulting, insufferable rage bait articles I have seen in my years as being a Star Trek fan and a Star Trek YouTube personality. What are we talking about today? This Gizmodo article. Is this even an article, or is this another one of those paid promotional advertisements? Because we've gotten those before from the New York Times. I've done videos on those. If I can find it, I'll link it right here. Also, if you guys do like my content, please like, subscribe, share. YouTube does not enjoy people who are honest like me and who will rip this article a new one. And you know what? I need to take this one up one step further. We're getting the theme music and the writing crop. Right. Don't give this a click. This isn't worth the time and money and advertising revenue they're going to be extracting from people, because that's one of the things that they like to do. They like to come in and rage bait for clicks, for views, just so people like me will have to come along and tell them exactly why they're wrong. And we know that they do that. They always do that. The Ist legacy in Star Trek's progressive universe. Well, at least they're admitting that the universe in Star Trek is, in fact, actually progressive, unlike how it is now. The fact that every female on this series is portrayed as a bitter, unpleasant, condescending, man-hating, miserable, oh, can I swear yet? You know what, of a woman. And let's just say female dogs have a name. And that is what every single female character in this current iteration of Star Trek has become when they're not absolutely annoying, useless people. Shut the fuck up. Admiral Hubris, watch your mouth. Now I have to check the little box about language. And I don't like doing that because that means I suffer for it. Oh, yeah. Not like I haven't been suffering enough from this new modern iteration of Star Trek, but here we go. Also, this picture is a little confusing. First off, Tasha Yar was only in for one season. Why is she front and center like she was important or original or even integral to the entire plot? You've got a little miss, what's her name here? This murderer one, the one in the jumpsuit from the newest show with Picard, where every single female character is either talking down to him, responding with a snotty attitude, being just absolutely unpleasant and miserable.
Sheer fucking hubris.
Yeah, like that. And not only that, she was an android who decided to wipe out everybody in the galaxy because people don't like androids, I guess, was the message. And then she got a participation trophy afterwards for changing her mind and not being horrible. Ooh, Mechaception. I like that. I think I might leave that in. The Mechaception is strong here. It is exactly what they did in Star Trek Picard with all of the different versions of Alison Pill and her faces everywhere, isn't it? Do I have to be all over? Oh, no. We won't do that. I'll save you from that one. I apologize for that. Ban Mecha for that. Let's get into this article. This rate. It's not even an article, is it? And this is from, who is this? Gizmodo. Gizmodo. Shouldn't you be talking about video games and electronics and technology and things instead of these Star Trek bashing articles? Because seriously, you just look foolish and childish and petty when you have to run these temper tantrum articles. That's all this is. This is just somebody going, wah, wah, I'm having a temper tantrum because wah, 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 wah. Shut up. Just shut up. These writers are such grown children. I am so tired of it. In the 4th episode of Star Trek Picard, a familiar face storms onto the scene. Is that the one with 7 of 9 where they completely destroyed any humanity she had and just turned her into a random video game character where she just wipes out everybody without a single thought, including Icheb, who she did murder him, even though he didn't need to die, did he? Because he didn't even have the cortical node that they were plucking out, because he already gave it to her in Voyager if they had actually watched the show. But no, she comes in and she mercy kills him, I suppose. I don't know. I don't even know what the point of that was. And unless it was just to insult the actor who plays him. So sure, I guess I understand their motives a little bit better because I know how petty these people making current Star Trek are. With plenty of legacy characters, this might be just another day at the space office. At the space office, you act like they're actual co-workers or comrades or people who even have any relation to each other other than they happen to be cast in the same show. These people barely interact with each other. They're just there to bounce insults off of Picard, if you're talking about the Picard series. And in Discovery, they're only there to make Michael Burnham look like the be-all, end-all, bestest thing in the whole entire universe, while everybody else around her looks foolish. And she goes around telling everybody how to be a better Vulcan, how to be a better human, how to be a better Klingon, how to be a better whatever the case may be. And it's disgusting and it's insulting, and that is one of the biggest problems with modern Star Trek.
This is so fucking cool.
It is fucking cool.
Don't make me thwack you, modern Star Trek. All of you. I'm tired of you. 7 of 9, the beloved iconic character, even more badass than she was during her time on Voyager. Yeah, by being reduced to a video game character, by being reduced to a random extra player that comes in to help you along your quest in one of these games. Somebody who's just an NPC there to shoot people. That's all she really was. And to have 1 or 2 little representation diversity points added to her character because, she had to apologize for being dressed in the skin-tight outfits. That's what it was, because people were coming after her for allowing herself to be dressed like that. And she was always pretty badass. You owe me a sip, Picard, she quips after saving the crew in a space battle. And the episode cuts to black. You know, here's the thing. Are you going to be canceled for using that word now? Because I can think of a reason why you might be canceled. Over 20 years after the USS Voyager returned to the Alpha Quadrant, in Picard, 7 is now a hardened vigilante. Yeah, exactly. They've reduced her to somebody I used to aspire to be, to somebody I look down on for being just such a pathetic piece of trash. Like everybody in this modern Star Trek. They think so little of women that they just want us to be represented as nags and bitches and condescending, drinking, sex addict, druggies, whatever the case may be. You've got every woman on these shows absolutely horrible. And I am disgusted how sexist and just horrible this new Star Trek is in its representation of women. This is the second article I've had to smack down when they try and tell me how good these new female characters are and they can stuff it. I am sick of this stuff. I am sick of their fake narrative, because what happens, you get people who don't really know Star Trek very well. You get those people coming around just attacking the original. They come into the fandom with a negative imagery of the original series because you have articles like this, and then they come in and try and gatekeep out the older fans who have been there for the longest time by picking apart the one minimal screenshot of something that will invalidate an example of one of the many things that are wrong with this new Star Trek. And they want to provoke and fight and, like I said, gatekeep the older fans out because we're complaining about it, because they have such distaste because of these articles, because of stuff like this, and it gets old. I get tired of it. Gone finely. Here we go. Like I said, gone finely is the skin-tight catsuit that Seven donned on Voyager. A clear invitation to see Seven as a person first and a woman second, standing in stark contrast to that rib-crushing corset. Oh, and that's fake. I actually did a video on that, how Jerry Ryan called out people who said she was uncomfortable in that. And you know what? She was a Borg. She viewed human sexuality as unnecessary and one of these things that she would use if she were going to reproduce at some point in the future. She did not view clothing as anything more, and I've cropped her off here on the picture, I apologize for that. She didn't view clothing as anything more than a necessary way to protect her skin from the temperature, from the environment. That's all it was. It was not supposed to be aesthetically appealing. To use words that Seven of Nine said quite often, it was not designed to be attractive. They were designed to be functional first. Seven of Nine was very similar to a Vulcan in a lot of ways because clothing was supposed to be functional instead of flirty or whatever the case may be. It was not a rib-crushing corset, thank you very much. It was something that was just there functionally. It was just there to cover her body. You are projecting your own insecurities and your own useless, disgusting anti-women and anti-female choice narrative into this article. And I don't care if you are a woman who wrote this. I'm correcting you like I should be because you are a child who wrote this. With Picard's Seven of Nine appending her late 90s incarnation, we're forced to confront the stumbles of Star Trek's past. No, you're not. No, you're not. By what? Stumbling even farther back into the past by making everybody suddenly need money all of a sudden. Suddenly be jealous of people like J.L. Picard because he has the vineyard, even though they got their own useless selves thrown out of Starfleet for being absolutely useless deadbeat characters. You know, further stereotypes of people of color, mind you, like these writers would like you to believe, because these writers think so little of women and so little of people of other ethnicities. They have to write them in the worst possible portrayals of these roles, meanwhile telling you how progressive and wonderful and accepting they are and how diverse they are. And we know it is a bunch of crap.
You want to see my crank?
What can we learn from looking back at Trek? And with all the strides it made for female representation, can we really call it sexist? No, you can't. You can call it progressive and groundbreaking. The women on the original 1960s Star Trek, and here's something that I do know a little bit about, is 1960s TV. It is my favorite decade for television. They actually were petitioning to be allowed to wear miniskirts on their uniforms because they were tired of being thrown into the Stone Ages with these puritanical dress and garb. They wanted to show and flaunt their femininity. They wanted to prove that they were somebody to be looked at and desired because you know what happens? It makes you feel attractive. It makes you feel wanted. It makes you feel feminine. It makes you feel alive. It makes you feel evolutionary in a lot of ways because we are, as a human species, put on this planet to procreate and keep going and moving forward. There you go. That's the meaning of life. That's all it's ever been. And the fact that we have today's modern society where you have these temper tantrum throwing crybaby Puritans going around screaming, oh, but where are her organs? Where are her organs? Where are her organs? No, shut up. You don't get to say that. You don't get to throw a temper tantrum about body types that do not conform to your narrow ideals. There are many different body types on many different women, and I enjoy looking, and other women enjoy looking. Other women do not like being told what they can and can't say, especially from male feminists. That's another rant for another day. A new frontier for women. Women in Star Trek have always had a strong presence, have always been given complex characterizations, and have ostensibly been treated as equals by both their peers and the utopian society that surrounded them, that they destroyed to make Picard. They absolutely took everything that was interesting and wonderful and utopian about Star Trek, the equality, the doing away with monetary needs, the strive for enlightenment and being happy, which makes sense as equal representation was always core tenet for this frontier-busting space opera. When the very first Star Trek launched on the airwaves, Gene Roddenberry's utopian vision led him to position a woman on the bridge, and originally this wasn't Uhura. They're going to go in and blame oh, it's just toxic men, toxic men. Well, you know what? This is the 1960s we're talking about. I'm going to skip ahead to this. Here we go. The first pilot episode was produced in 1965. It featured a woman as the first officer, known only as Number One. Majel Barrett's character was a commanding presence on the bridge, a little too commanding for test audiences. That is not true. That is not true. One of the problems that they had with the original Star Trek Cage pilot episode, and why it was not picked up, and why it is not treated as 100% canon until they come back with bits of it for the menagerie, and they did have to kind of go in and retcon some of this stuff. They did not treat this, and I still don't accept this as a canonical episode that we even have to care about, but they keep going back to that one. They keep going back to that one because that's the only one these modern Star Trek writers have ever seen. It's the first one that pops into Netflix. It's the first one that comes in, and they don't know enough about Star Trek to know it was unaired until the 1980s. And you know what? You had Captain Pike, who was quite boring and quite bland and quite generic for 1960s television. And if I wasn't on the bridge of the Enterprise, I would show you my DVD collection, which is all 1960s television pretty much. 90% of it. And every single TV show had a boring Captain Pike sort of character as the father, as the commanding officer, every military show, every family show. It was a very bland, boring sort of TV series. It was a little weird, it was a little creepy, and Spock smiling really, really didn't help any of that.
In short, in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, you are the very model of a modern Major General.
See how creepy and unnerving it is when Spock smiles? Like, for crying out loud, we don't want to see that. It doesn't sit well with audiences. This is why they retconned it. All right, I'm on a rant. And not only that, this is the 1960s where women were still desiring to come into the workforce, but not all of them. You had a few handful of them. It wasn't every single woman. You had enough of them who said, hey, I don't want to just be a housewife. I want to do a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you had a lot of women who still wanted traditional family values back in the 1960s. And the fact that we did not have these female-led shows in the 1960s is nothing to be against. It is nothing to be disgusted by. We had strong women on television. We had people who were producing and in charge of and running their own TV shows. We had the Elizabeth Montgomerys for Bewitched. We had people like Lucille Ball, who actually was responsible for putting Star Trek on CBS at Desilu. She was the one who was pioneering all of this stuff. She was a strong woman behind the scenes. We had the Marlo Thomas types. We have had these amazing women behind the scenes for decades. And to pretend that we never did before and that was all wrong because we had just a little sprinkling in from here and there from time to time is regressive. It is not appreciating the groundbreaking strides we actually made in the past by not holding them up to today's batshit crazy backwards standards. And I'm tired of it. Oh, and they're going after, it would take Trek another 2 shows and 3 decades to finally cast a woman as a first officer. You're a military show at the same time. They're mad that Uhura didn't have more to do. They're mad that Nurse Chapel didn't have more to do. It was the 1960s. You know what? Deal with it. You had a woman on the bridge who was African American, which was a huge strive at that time. You had an Asian person on the bridge. You had somebody portraying a Russian on the bridge in the middle of the Cold War. Get over yourselves. You cannot hold Star Trek to today's standards when you can't even acknowledge or understand how actually groundbreaking it was. They had knocked out so many walls just to put her on the bridge. She didn't have much to do, but she was there. That's not true. She was doing her job. Without Number One, the women in the original Star Trek were very much of their time. Yes, it was still written in the 1960s. You know what else they had? They still had analog dials on there. They didn't have digital yet because they were still going off of the time. And you know what? It was pretty damn progressive for them to see the world where people worked together and respected each other regardless of gender, ethnicity, nationality, skin color, whatever you want to call it. You had people who were treated as equal and not used as a diversity checkbox like you do now. Like your giant little game of Wokemon. And here's you go. I need to pull up my soundbite.
Wokemon.
And that's all we are. We are used as your quota checkbox to go around proving how not racist and sexist you people are in Hollywood. Meanwhile, you have every woman portrayed as an absolute condescending, batshit crazy bitch. You have every person of color portrayed as a drug addict or an absolute batshit condescending crazy bitch in the case of Discovery, and you don't understand how groundbreaking Star Trek always was. Star Trek was a show that was light years ahead of its time. Literally. Here we go. Tasha Yar. They had a woman security officer. Absolutely. You had a woman doctor. Absolutely. You had characters of all walks of life. Stop acting like it's not. It was an interesting time in the 1980s, says Denise Crosby, who portrayed Tasha Yar. That's because I guess they have a quote from her why she was front and center. She describes what made her character a touchstone for the age. Women were defending themselves, not in terms of how they should be perceived, but how they wanted to be perceived. So why the crap are they calling this a sexist thing? Oh, because it is now. Because it is now. That's why they're calling it ist. Because it is way more sexist now than it ever was back then. And I can concur. I can guarantee that is the case. Over the years, Troy and Crusher would slowly get more screen time. Well, guess what? It was an ensemble cast. You started with the captain and the first couple of officers, and usually it would be the doctor. You have your core crew as your main characters, and it sort of branched out. You had Geordi episodes, you had Worf episodes, you had Tasha episodes, you had Wesley Crusher episodes. That's what an ensemble cast does. Not everybody gets 100% of the screen time. Not everybody gets equal lines or equal screen time. You know who complains about that? Crybabies in Hollywood that we make fun of. The actors who are there sitting around counting their lines like a bunch of children when they really are kind of forgetting how fortunate they are and privileged they are to be in the show at all. The Star Trek babe. Yeah, you know what? There's nothing wrong with feeling attractive and appealing. I've already talked about that. There has to be a girl for boys to look at when they're not blowing up spaceships. That is incorrect. Deanna, I've already gone after Deanna Marina Sirtis a few times for saying condescending things about nerds and geeks, how they can't get girlfriends, all of these things. Deanna, guys don't need hot chicks to look at on Star Trek. Sometimes that's for us girls to come in and cosplay. You got me? Sometimes that's for us to say, hey, I can see my, you talk about representation, lady. Talk about that. And somebody who might want to, I don't know, aspire to be somebody attractive on screen at some point. That's what you're there for. And it just so happens that men like to look at attractive women. There is nothing wrong with that. You can take that attitude and stick it. And here's the thing, with the inclusion of 7 of 9, who drew in viewers based on, hey, she looks kind of hot and she's very attractive, people stayed because they wrote an interesting character for her to portray until they destroyed her in Picard. Guess what? That's what you do when you're trying to bring in viewers. You're trying to entice people with looks. You eat with your eyes first, so to speak. This is why all these people go on Instagram and take pictures of their food before they devour it. And yeah, I'm talking about eating 7 and 9. You want to start something? There's nothing wrong with a little girl on girl giggity. I mean, Star Trek was pretty progressive after all, way before Batwhamans and all those shows. Oh good, she at least acknowledges that's why Ryan didn't mind the cat suit. I didn't have a problem with her overtly sexy appearance. Many would say gratuitously so. Well, she was covered from head to toe. She was absolutely covered. She was covered from her wrist all the way up, long sleeves. Her cat suit was up to here. I am in more revealing costume right now in a long robe than 7 of 9 was in Voyager for the most part. Now she's overtly sexed up by having a little giggity fling with Raffi for no reason other than representation, diversity, and their giant game of Wokemon. Absolutely. The knock-on effects of sexism. All of this seems pretty paradoxical. After all, Star Trek's writing of women steadily improved from the Next Generation upwards. Deep Space Nine's women broke out of traditional female roles. Exactly, was given plenty of screen time. Yes, and this is why Star Trek was never ist and phobic. The Boys Club, here we go. If the entertainment industry is dominated by men now, this is even more decades ago. Oh, so they're upset that women weren't wanting to come out and get jobs writing for TV shows because they were at home raising families, or they had different interests. In the case of people who wrote soap operas, for example. I'm a huge Dark Shadows fan, in case you guys didn't know. I would love to have the box set with Barnabas in the coffin. I don't have it. I don't have that kind of money. But I know that the woman who played the maid on that show also wrote quite a few of those episodes of Dark Shadows. It was a soap opera. Women will find different things that they want to do. Science fiction has never been the main thing that a female audience flocks to. It is a very masculine sort of topic. It is a very different part of the brain, different part of how you were raised, what you grow up with, what your tastes are. And the fact that you have more female viewers who are out there watching The View and fewer men watching The View just means that taste is subjective. Women like different things. Men like different things. They are drawn to write and create and direct and produce and act in different things. They are drawn to watch different things. My viewing audience is 80% male. And you know what? I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong, and there's nothing that I want to do to exclude the female audience and not cry outrage when you might not understand the circumstances. You can look at the statistics all you want, but you also have to take into consideration the statistics of the people who actually want to do these jobs, the people who actually want to be working behind the scenes or in front of the camera in some capacity. You are trying to paint a narrative based on fake, false, partial information that you have no understanding of, and I'm going to guarantee this writer was not around in the 60s and has no idea how actually progressive it was back then. We could argue, of course, that Star Trek was a product of his era. It was. But the actors were aware at the time that the show could be better. Really, because they were pretty darn progressive. If you don't mind me saying so. Here's the thing: anytime you are going around trying to say, "Oh yes, in the past we could have fixed this," why are you so focused on something you can't do? You can't fix the past. What you can do is learn how progressive and reasonable and forward-thinking that the past actually was. And you don't understand anything of what you're talking about on this. You're disproving your point multiple times. You're going back and forth. You have no idea. And this just goes on and on and on. I think I am done. Yeah, how the times have changed. You know how the times have changed? Now we have 7 of 9 out there, completely un-7 of 9 like. She went from, I'm 7 of 9 to, hi, I'm Annika Hansen. I'm going to sleep with everybody on this ship, and I'm going to shoot you if you disagree with me. Her body language changed. Her mannerisms changed. She devolved into a trigger-happy, drinking sort of waste. She's just a waste. She is not even the same character. And that's what's so disgusting, is that they think so little of women now that they're writing them this trashy. We were writing females better 20 years ago. Oh, don't get me started on this Issa Bryans, whatever chick. Newcomer on the show told IO9 she found the approach refreshing. Although initially she was concerned that her character Soji would be born sexy yesterday. We could have so easily fallen into that trope, making her this childlike girl who doesn't know anything and who's just following men. Well, she kind of was. Soji really was, though. She was just out there following Picard around and being a bratty teenager telling off daddy. That's all she was. Is that how little you think of women? Alex Kurtzman, Akiva Goldsman, every single one of you people. I am tired of this article. This just keeps going and going and going. Oh, here we go. They're talking about the LGBTQ representation. Like I said, we're already used as token Wokemon diversity checkboxes that you get to hide from criticism behind because, oh, look how woke we are. I don't care. Cry me a river. Get this crap off of my screen. I am tired of reading about this. I'm sick of these uneducated authors who go back and forth between their points, who don't understand that they're actually disproving their own statements with their examples. I am Mecha Random 42. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. I will see you on the next video, live stream, or wherever, if I can figure out how to get off of this ship. Bye. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.